My stepmother looked me dead in the eyes across the kitchen table and said, with a smile on her face, "Sign the money over, honey. Your mom would have wanted this. $600,000. That's what she was asking me to hand over. Money my dying mother had spent her last year on Earth making sure nobody could ever steal from me. I was 16 years old. I had nowhere to go. And I said absolutely nothing. 'Cause 2 weeks later I handed them a sealed envelope, and what was written inside it made my father weep in front of a lawyer like a little kid. Not because of the money. 'Cause of what my mother had written about him. Words she had kept sealed for 2 years, just waiting for the exact moment he'd need to hear them. Stay with me. Because this story doesn't go where you think it's going. My name is Brooke Callahan. I am 18 years old. Real quick before we go any further, if you are already feeling this, tap that like button right now. Takes 1 second and it means the world to this channel. And hit subscribe if you're new, because I promise you do not want to miss where this story goes. Drop a comment right now and tell me what city you're in and what time it is there. I read every single comment. Every one. Okay. Let's go back to where this really started. My mother's name was Donna Callahan. She was 41 years old. She taught 5th grade at Ridge Elementary School in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and I mean she really taught. She was there an hour before the bell and an hour after. She bought winter coats for kids whose parents couldn't afford them and never once mentioned it. She taught me to read before I ever stepped foot in a classroom. She taught me to write thank you notes by hand. And she taught me something I didn't fully understand until the hardest moments of this story, that staying quiet is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. Cancer arrived when I was 14 years old. Non-smoker. Never touched a cigarette her entire life. Lung cancer stage 3. The oncologist at United Hospital Center in Clarksburg said sometimes it just happens. My mom said, and I will never forget this, all right? Then we deal with it. That was it. No breakdown. No tears in the car. She adapted. For almost 2 full years, she taught at Ridge Elementary in Clarksburg Monday through Wednesday. Did chemotherapy on Thursdays at United Hospital Center. Spent her weekends grading spelling tests on our apartment couch with a heating pad on her lap, a game show on TV, and a red pen in her right hand. I sat beside her most nights doing homework, pretending I didn't notice when the pain made her go quiet. The last few weeks, she could barely get above a whisper. But one afternoon she took my hand, her fingers so thin I could feel every single bone, and she said, "Everything you need is with Hendrix, baby. Promise me you'll call her." I had no idea who Hendrix was. I had no idea what everything meant. I just held her hand and said, "I promise, Mom." She smiled. This small, exhausted, perfect smile. And then, on a gray Thursday morning in November, in a hospital room at United Hospital Center in Clarksburg, West Virginia, with a forgotten balloon still floating in the corner, she let go. I was the only one there. My father, Gary Callahan, had not visited her once in 2 years. Not when she was diagnosed. Not when she lost her hair. Not when she sold furniture to cover the medical deductibles. Not one single visit. The nurses cried more than I did. My Aunt Beverly drove 4 hours straight from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to hold me in the hospital hallway while I shook. My dad sent a text the next morning. 3 words, "Thinking of you both." Like she was a coworker. Like she was someone he barely knew. Hold on to that detail. Matters more than you know right now. Here is the situation I was stuck in. I was 16 years old, and in the state of West Virginia, a minor has to have a legal guardian. My Aunt Beverly applied all the way from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Court said no, biological parent takes priority. Gary Callahan, age 44, employed, homeowner, legally married. He checked every single box. So I packed 2 suitcases and moved into his 3-bedroom rancher on the west side of Martinsburg, West Virginia. Gary and Renee had the master bedroom. Renee's son Colton, 15 years old, had the second bedroom. And me? I got the converted laundry room at the end of the hall. No window. A bare light bulb on the ceiling. A camping cot they'd pulled from a bin in the garage. My suitcases literally didn't fit in the room. I stacked them against the wall and lay down on that cot listening to Colton's gaming headset bleeding through the drywall. The very first night, my first night in that house in Martinsburg, I heard Renee in the kitchen. She wasn't talking to Gary. She was talking about me. Her voice was low, like she thought the walls were thicker than they were. She said, "How long before we can get access to the account?" Then a pause. Then, "She's been here 48 hours and she already acts like she has a lease." I pulled my mom's old fleece blanket around my shoulders and stared up at that bare light bulb. And I thought about something my mother used to say: people show you who they are on the very first day. Believe them. 2 weeks into living in Martinsburg, Renee made baked ziti on a Saturday night. She served everyone before me. Sat down. Ate about 6 bites. Then she put her fork down and started talking money, looking directly at Gary like I wasn't sitting 4 feet away. Colton's summer sports academy is $4,000. The roof over the mudroom is still leaking. My credit card is out of control, and don't even get me started on the property taxes. Gary chewed slowly, did this thing where he paused long enough to look like he was deciding something when really somebody had already decided it for him. Then he turned to me. "Brooke, your mom left you some money, right? We should probably sit down as a family and talk about that." I set my fork down. "It's in a trust. I don't have access yet." Renee leaned forward across the table. "Trusts can be modified. We looked it up." That single word hit me like a bucket of cold water. This was not a dinner conversation. This was a coordinated plan. They had researched it together, probably before I even moved into the Martinsburg house. Maybe that same week as my mother's funeral in Clarksburg. While I was still figuring out which photos to pack, they were Googling how to get into her money. I stood up, rinsed my plate, dried it, put it in the cabinet, and said, "I heard you. I just don't have anything to add right now." I went to my room and closed the door quietly. That night, I opened the small wooden box I'd carried from my mom's apartment in Clarksburg. Under her reading glasses and a birthday card she'd written me when I turned 13 was a folded slip of paper. My mom's handwriting. 6 words and a phone number. Vivian Hendricks Yescu, call her baby. I ran my thumb over the ink and thought, "Mom, what did you already know?" Turns out, absolutely everything. 3 weeks later, a Monday morning before school, I came downstairs and found a thick stack of papers sitting in the center of the kitchen table in Martinsburg. Yellow highlighter across the top paragraph. The header read, "Petition for appointment of guardian of minor's estate, State of West Virginia." Gary was at the counter pouring coffee. Didn't look up right away. "It's just a formality," he said. "As your legal guardian, it makes sense for me to have oversight of your finances. I'm trying to protect you, Brooke." "You want legal control of Mom's trust," I said. "I want to make sure it's handled responsibly." "You're 16. Mom was 39 when she set it up," I said. "From a hospital room in Clarksburg. She understood money just fine." He grabbed his keys and left for his job site without another word. Renee leaned against the counter, both hands around her coffee mug, and smiled at me over the rim. Not a warm smile. Kind that says, "This is already done, you just don't know it yet." That afternoon I walked to the Martinsburg Public Library on Chesapeake Avenue. I sat in the back corner and called the only person I hadn't been able to face since the funeral. Aunt Beverly answered on the first ring. "Baby," she said before I'd even gotten a word out. "I have been sitting here waiting for you to call." The following Saturday, I took the Greyhound from Martinsburg, 2.5 hours west through the mountains, to Clarksburg, West Virginia. Aunt Beverly drove down from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and met me at the bus stop on West Main Street. Together we walked to the law offices of Vivian Hendricks on Pike Street in downtown Clarksburg. Small building. Small sign above the door. A fern in the window. But the woman sitting behind the desk inside? Anything but small. Vivian Hendricks was around 60 years old. Silver hair pulled back tight. Reading glasses on a chain. She had this absolute stillness about her, the kind you only get from decades of watching people try to do things they shouldn't and stopping them every time. She looked at me like she had been expecting me for a long time. "Sit down, Brooke," she said. "Your mother told me a great deal about you." Aunt Beverly sat beside me. Hendricks opened a folder on her desk, thick, color-tabbed, clipped with 3 binder clips. "Your mother established an irrevocable trust 14 months before she passed, right here in these offices in Clarksburg, West Virginia. She named me as sole trustee. You, Brooke Marie Callahan, are the sole beneficiary." She paused. "Do you know what irrevocable means?" "Can't be undone," I said. "Correct. Not by your father. Not by his wife. Not by any petition for guardianship of estate filed anywhere in West Virginia, because the trust already has a designated independent trustee. Me. Your father has no legal standing over this money. Not 1 inch of it." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for an entire month. Trust held $600,000. My mom's life insurance policy paid out $380,000. Her savings account held $145,000. And the remaining $75,000 came from the quiet sale of her car, her grandmother's jewelry, and pieces of furniture she had sold off one by one during her final months. I had thought she was just simplifying her life. I had thought it was about medical bills. She was building a wall around me. Hendricks reached into her desk drawer and slid a cream-colored envelope across the desk. Heavy paper. My mom's handwriting on the front, "For Gary when the time comes." "Your mother left specific instructions," Hendricks said. "She wanted you to deliver this to your father personally, but only at the right moment." She looked at me steadily. "She said you'd know when that was." I held the envelope. Felt warm. Like it had been sitting there, knowing its day would come. I have to stop right here for a second because this next part of the story is where most people either gasp or go completely silent. But before we get there, if somebody in your life right now is being pressured to give up money or an inheritance that was left specifically for them, share this story with them. Right now. Put it in their messages. 'Cause what my mom did next changed the entire game. And I want to make sure this gets to everyone who needs it. Hit share. Drop a comment. Tell me your city and what time it is there. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Let's keep going. I came back to the Martinsburg house that Sunday evening feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, grounded. Like someone had put solid floor back underneath me. That feeling lasted about 20 minutes. I found a black garbage bag sitting on the concrete floor of the garage right next to the recycling bins. Inside it, my mom's photo albums. Her favorite coffee mug, the blue one with the chipped handle she refused to ever throw away. My journal. And her necklace. A thin gold chain with a small oval locket she had worn every single day I had ever known her. Renee had cleared out the shelves in the laundry room. Colton, Renee's 15-year-old son, needed the space for his lacrosse gear. I walked to the living room doorway. Renee was on the couch, feet on the ottoman, watching HGTV. She didn't look up. We needed the storage space. You had too much stuff crammed in there. That necklace was my mother's, I said. She wore it on her wedding day. Renee changed the channel. I went back to the garage, sat down on the cold concrete floor, and went through that black bag piece by piece. Found the locket tangled up in a scarf. Pinned it. Inside, a tiny photograph of my mom and me at Christmas when I was about 6 years old. Her arm around me. Both of us laughing at something just outside the frame. Corner of the photo was water damaged. I put the necklace on and felt the clasp click against the back of my neck. And I said out loud to that empty garage, "You can take my closet. You can have my chair at the dinner table. But you do not get to throw my mother in the trash." That night I sorted every photo, damaged pile, saved pile. Sealed the good ones in a Ziploc bag inside my suitcase. From that night forward, I wore that locket every single day. Slept in it. Showered in it. I was not taking it off until I was somewhere safe. I texted Aunt Beverly in Pittsburgh. They threw out Mom's things. I need a countdown. She texted back in under a minute, 16 months, baby girl. You turn 18 in 16 months. We are getting you through every single one of them. I started counting. Came on a Wednesday evening in April. Gary called me into the living room after dinner. Renee was already on the couch, arms crossed, legs crossed, jaw set. She'd barely said 10 words at dinner, saving everything for this moment. I sat down across from them. Gary's voice was careful, like he'd been rehearsing lines. "We need that money, Brooke. Colton needs orthodontia. Renee's mom in Hagerstown, Maryland needs in-home care 3 days a week. I've got a second mortgage I can barely keep up with. Your stepmother has been holding this family together and we are drowning. The trust has an independent trustee in Clarksburg," I said. "I cannot give you money that I don't control. It's irrevocable." "Those are the legal facts." Renee leaned forward. "Your mother wouldn't want you to be this selfish." I looked right at her. "Teddy, you never met my mother." The room went dead quiet. Gary's face changed. Not quite anger, something older and heavier underneath it. Shame dressed up as authority. "I'm still your father," he said. "Then act like one," I said back. 10 full seconds of silence. Then Renee, "If you can't be part of this family, Brooke, maybe this living arrangement needs to be reconsidered." There it was. The threat sitting right there between us. A 16-year-old girl with nowhere else to go. "Cooperate or we'll throw you out." I stood up. My hands were trembling, but I kept them at my sides. "You left her when she was healthy," I said to Gary. "You never visited once while she was dying at United Hospital Center in Clarksburg. And now you want what she saved for me." I looked him directly in the face. "She spent her last year in a hospital building a fortress, so I'd be okay without you." She knew you'd ask. She made sure the answer would always be no, even when I was too scared and too alone to say it myself. I walked to my room and closed the door quietly. The way she always showed me to. By the next morning, Renee was on her phone. She called Gary's mother, Grammy Eloise, who lived in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, then Gary's sister Patrice in Ranson, West Virginia, then Gary's cousin Wade over in Frederick, Maryland. She told each of them a version of the same story. Brooke is sitting on $600,000 while this family goes under. She won't help. She's ungrateful. She's cold. She's turning into her mother. That last part was supposed to be a gut punch. It was the best thing anyone had said about me in months. Grammy Eloise called first. "Brooke, your father is giving you a roof over your head in Martinsburg. The least you can do is help out. Grammy, the money is in an irrevocable trust. I legally cannot access it or transfer it to anyone." "Then get your lawyer in Clarksburg to fix it." "That's not how irrevocable trusts work, Grammy. Your mother raised you better than this." I held the phone away from my ear. Breathed. "Then I love you, Grammy. I have to go." Patrice sent a text from Ranson. "Family helps family. Don't be that girl." I didn't respond. And then there was the one person who didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't pile on. Gary's younger brother, Uncle Marsh. Marcus Callahan, 38 years old, a certified public accountant at a firm in Charleston, West Virginia. Quiet one at every family holiday I could remember. The guy who ate his food and left without drama. I thought his silence meant he didn't care. I was completely wrong about what that silence meant. I started spending every afternoon I could at the Martinsburg Public Library on Chesapeake Avenue. Not just for my volunteer shelving shifts on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but for the back room with the long wooden table by the window that nobody else ever seemed to want. Mrs. Fogarty, the head librarian, had met my mom at a literacy conference in Charleston a couple years before the diagnosis. She never once asked me questions about what was going on at Gary's house. She just left the back room unlocked after hours and looked the other way. I did my homework there. SAT prep. I wrote letters to my mom I never planned to send, telling her about Renee and the petition papers and Grammy Eloise's phone calls. I wrote them like she was reading over my shoulder. Maybe she was. That library on Chesapeake Avenue in Martinsburg was the only place where nobody asked me to give them something. For a few hours every afternoon, I was just a 16-year-old girl at a table by a window with a little bit of room to breathe. I needed every single one of those afternoons. Colton, Renee's 15-year-old son, made it personal. He'd already taken my phone charger twice, borrowed my headphones without asking, and owed me $5 he'd never brought up again. I let all of it go. But the journal was different. I came home from the library on a Thursday afternoon to find my journal open on the kitchen counter. A glass of fruit punch had tipped over directly onto the pages where I had written letters to my mom. The ink had bled through 5 pages. Words were completely gone. Colton was at the table on his phone. He looked up, said oops, went back to scrolling. I didn't yell. I photographed every readable page with my phone, backed them all up to Google Drive, sealed the journal in a Ziploc bag, and put it in my suitcase. That evening, Colton walked through the hallway with 2 friends from his school in Martinsburg. He stopped at my laundry room doorway just long enough to say, "That's her. She lives in the storage closet. Her mom died and left her loaded." His friends laughed, kept walking. I was almost to the kitchen when I heard a quiet voice behind me. "Hey." I turned around. Standing in the hallway was Jade, Renee's older daughter from a previous relationship, 17 years old. She'd been living with her biological dad in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia for most of the year, and had moved back into the Martinsburg house just a couple weeks after I did. We'd mostly just nodded at each other in the hallway. "I'm sorry about your journal," she said, arms wrapped around herself. "Colton thinks everything is a joke." "It's not funny." "It's not your fault," I said. She nodded. Stood there a moment like she had more to say but couldn't find it. Then she went back to her room. 6 words. That was it. But it was 6 more words of genuine kindness than I'd gotten from anyone in that Martinsburg house in weeks. I stood in the hallway thinking, there's someone else here who didn't ask to be in this situation either. I found the proof on a Tuesday morning in May. I was looking for a pen in the kitchen junk drawer, the one in the Martinsburg house where Renee kept takeout menus, expired coupons, dead AA batteries, and apparently her worst decisions. The letter was from Allegheny Trust Management Services out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Addressed to the law offices of Vivian Hendricks on Pike Street in Clarksburg, West Virginia. A courtesy copy had been forwarded to the household. The letter stated that a request had been received from one Renee Callahan, identifying herself as legal guardian of minor Brooke Callahan, requesting a full account summary and complete withdrawal authorization for the Donna Callahan Irrevocable Trust. The request had been denied. The letter cited the trust agreement. All inquiries must go exclusively through the designated trustee. Requests from unrecognized third parties will not be processed. Renee had called the trust company in Pittsburgh. She had told them she was my legal guardian. She had tried to access my mother's $600,000. My hands did not shake. I felt something colder than anger. Something sharp and absolutely clear. I photographed both sides of the letter. Photographed the envelope with the postmark. Put everything back in the drawer exactly as I had found it. That afternoon, I emailed the photos to Hendricks in Clarksburg with one line. She called the trust company in Pittsburgh and pretended to be my legal guardian. Hendricks replied within 35 minutes. This is precisely what your mother anticipated. Everything is documented. Do not remove that letter from the drawer. Do not let them know you have seen it. I am arranging a meeting. Then a second email 2 minutes later. It is time, Brooke. Your mother thought of everything. I closed my phone. Through the kitchen window I could see Renee in the backyard of the Martinsburg house, laughing on a call, completely unbothered. She had no idea what she had just put in motion. My mother had seen this move coming from 2 years away. She had written the instructions for it before she ever lost her hair. Kay, I need you to stay with me right here, because what happens at this meeting in Clarksburg is something I could never have prepared myself for, no matter how many times I imagined it. But first, if this story is hitting you right now, if you've got chills, if you're thinking of someone you know who's been in a situation like this, pause what you're doing and share this. Right now. Send it to somebody. Post it to your story. 'Cause this next part? This is why my mom wrote that letter. And it's something every single person needs to hear. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be right here when you get back. The following Sunday, Renee organized what I can only describe as her masterpiece. Grammy Eloise hosted dinner at her home in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, about 30 minutes east of Martinsburg. Everyone was there. Grammy at the head of the table. Aunt Patrice and her husband Donnie driving in from Ranson, West Virginia. Uncle Marsh, who had driven up from Charleston, West Virginia. Gary. Renee. Colton. Jade. And me, sitting in the corner seat closest to the door. I had learned to always sit closest to the door. Pot roast. Mashed potatoes. Green bean casserole. Small talk lasted about 11 minutes. Then Renee set her fork down, pressed her napkin carefully to the corner of her eye, and began. I have tried so hard. Her voice cracked right on schedule. I opened my home in Martinsburg to Brooke. I've treated her like my own daughter. But she refuses to be part of this family. She looked around the table. Gary works 60 hours a week on job sites all across Berkeley County. I gave up my position at the dental office to keep this household running. And Brooke, sitting on a $600,000 trust, won't contribute a single dollar while we can barely make the mortgage payment. Grammy Eloise set down her knife. Brooke, your father has done everything for you. Don't you think family means something? Patrice from across the table. Your mama would have wanted you to help. That was just how she was. I held my fork. The locket pressed warm and steady against my chest. None of these people, not Eloise, not Patrice, not Donnie, had been at my mother's funeral in Clarksburg. They hadn't sent flowers. They hadn't called. Some of them had never even met my mom. And now they were sitting around a pot roast in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, telling me what she would have wanted. Renee dabbed her eye one more time, really committing to the moment. And then, from the far end of the table, Uncle Marsh set down his glass of sweet tea. Quiet one. The one who hadn't said a single word all evening. Has anyone at this table actually read the trust documents? The room went so silent you could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. Renee's napkin froze against her cheek. Grammy's fork hung in the air. Because, Marsh continued, perfectly calm like he was explaining a spreadsheet, I have some questions. And I think before we start telling a 16-year-old girl what to do with her dead mother's estate, we should probably have some real answers first. Nobody responded. The wall clock in Grammy's house ticked 5 times. Then Grammy cleared her throat and pivoted the conversation to Patrice's bathroom renovation in Ranson. But the damage was done. Renee's whole performance had a crack running through it now, and every single person at that table felt it, even if nobody said so out loud. He found me in Grammy Eloise's driveway after dinner, leaning against the back bumper of Aunt Beverly's car. She had driven down from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and was my planned ride home to Martinsburg. I always had an exit plan now. Brooke. Hold on a second. Marcus Callahan, Uncle Marsh, 38 years old. CPA at a firm in Charleston, West Virginia. Fleece vest over a button-down. Kind of face that looks tired in a thoughtful way, not a defeated way. If your trust is set up the way I think it is, he said, keeping his voice low, they cannot touch it. No petition, no guardianship filing anywhere in West Virginia breaks through an independent trustee. Your dad has zero legal footing. Zero. I studied his face. Why are you telling me this? He glanced back at the lit kitchen window of Grammy's house in Shepherdstown. I could see Renee inside, gesturing with her fork while Grammy nodded. Because Gary called me 3 weeks ago. He wanted me, from my office in Charleston, to look at the trust structure. Find a loophole. Help him get access to your money. My stomach dropped. What did you say to him? I said no. He looked me directly in the eye. I told him that's not who we're supposed to be. Then I drove back to Charleston and couldn't sleep for 2 straight nights thinking about you sitting in that house in Martinsburg. He reached into his vest pocket and handed me a business card. Day or night. If anything gets worse, you call me. I mean that. He squeezed my shoulder, quick, a little awkward, the way men do when they mean something bigger than they know how to say, and walked back to his truck. I stood in that driveway in Shepherdstown for a long time after his headlights disappeared down the road. One person in that entire family had looked Gary in the eye and said no. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes one person telling the truth is all you need to hold on. Renee played her final card on a Tuesday afternoon 2 weeks before the meeting in Clarksburg. I was doing homework at the folding table in my laundry room when Jade knocked on the doorframe. She came in, sat on the edge of my cot, and stared at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat in the way a voice gets when someone is reading a script they hate. My mom told me to come say this. She wants you to know that if you don't share the money from the trust, Colton can't go to the sports academy this summer. And she can't make the car payment next month. She paused. She said it's your fault. I could hear Renee's footsteps in the hallway just outside the door, barely moving. Listening. Jade, I said quietly. That is not on you. And it is not on me. Your mom's bills are not my dead mother's responsibility. Jade wiped her eyes and left without another word. 30 seconds later, right on cue, Renee appeared in the doorway. Face of someone who had just won and lost at the same time. You made her cry. You are heartless. You are exactly like your mother. I stood up. The laundry room was small. Renee filled the doorway. But I looked straight at her, and something in my face made her take one small half-step back without even realizing she'd done it. Don't, I said. Don't ever talk about my mother again. She curled her lip. Or what? You'll find out Thursday. She stared at me. I held her gaze. 5 full seconds. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking down the hall of the Martinsburg house. Thursday was the day Vivian Hendricks had scheduled the meeting in Clarksburg. Renee didn't know that yet. Aunt Beverly drove from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and picked me up at the Martinsburg Greyhound station at 7 in the morning. Uncle Marsh drove up from Charleston, West Virginia, and texted me at 9, pulling into Clarksburg now. Parking. I hadn't asked him to come. He'd just decided to show up. That is what it looks like when someone genuinely has your back. Hendricks met the 3 of us in the hallway of her office on Pike Street in Clarksburg at 9:45. Charcoal blazer. Reading glasses on. The exact expression of a woman who had been building toward this specific moment for 14 months. Are you ready, Brooke? Yes. Good. Let me lead until I tell you otherwise. Gary and Renee arrived at exactly 10 o'clock. Renee had dressed for a negotiation she expected to win. Pressed blazer, pearl earrings, full makeup, a thick manila folder under her arm stuffed with legal printouts from the internet. She walked into those offices in Clarksburg like she was closing a real estate deal. Gary looked like a man who hadn't slept properly in several days and wasn't entirely sure why he'd been asked to show up. When Renee walked into the conference room and saw Uncle Marsh already sitting at the table, the brother she'd tried to recruit as a co-conspirator, who had driven up from Charleston instead to sit on my side of the table, something flickered across her face. Just for a second. Then she composed herself and sat down directly across from Hendricks, placing both hands flat on top of her manila folder. Gary sat beside her. The window behind Hendricks looked out onto Pike Street in downtown Clarksburg. Hendricks opened her folder, thick, real, tabbed and binder-clipped, and looked at each person in turn. "Thank you all for coming to Clarksburg today. I have called this meeting to resolve what appears to be serious ongoing confusion about the estate of Donna Callahan. I want to make several things permanently and legally clear." Renee's hands were flat on her folder, perfectly composed. Gary was already sweating through his collar. Hendricks read from the trust document the way a surgeon works, precise, unhurried, final. Donna Callahan established an irrevocable trust on August 7, 2 years ago, at these offices in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Trust names me, Vivian Hendricks, as sole trustee. The sole beneficiary is Brooke Marie Callahan. Combined trust assets total $600,000. She turned the page. Distribution schedule, $65,000 released for educational expenses when the beneficiary turns 18. Additional distributions at ages 21 and 25. All disbursements require trustee approval and full documentation. Renee leaned forward. Gary is her father. He has legal guardianship of her. Hendricks looked at her with the expression of someone watching a fly land on a courtroom wall. Parental rights and legal guardianship do not extend to an irrevocable trust established by a third party. Mr. Callahan is not the grantor, not the trustee, and not a beneficiary. He has zero legal standing over this trust. Not 1 inch of ground to stand on. Gary opened his mouth. Closed it. "Donna never told me she'd done this," he said. "Hendricks, she was not required to." Renee's grip tightened on her folder. "Then we'll contest it in court. We'll hire our own attorney." "You are absolutely welcome to do that," Hendricks said, without blinking, without raising her voice even slightly. "But first I want to show you something." She pulled a single sheet from her file. This office received a letter from Allegheny Trust Management Services in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, dated 6 weeks ago. Documents an unauthorized attempt to access Brooke Callahan's protected trust account. The caller identified herself as, she read directly from the page, Renee Callahan, legal guardian of Brooke Callahan. Color left Renee's face completely. Gary turned his head slowly toward his wife. "You called the trust company in Pittsburgh?" Renee said nothing. Impersonating a legal guardian to attempt access to a protected minor's trust account is a serious legal matter, Hendricks said. Her voice did not rise a single degree. Didn't need to. Potentially a federal offense. "I have documented everything in full detail. I trust we will not see this happen again." Renee's hand moved to her pearl earring. A nervous habit I'd watched her do dozens of times at the Martinsburg dinner table, but never with this expression on her face. The expression of someone who walked into a room absolutely certain they were going to win, and is realizing in real time that the doors have already locked behind them. Gary leaned back in his chair and rubbed both hands hard down his face. The guardianship petition. The Sunday dinner performance in Shepherdstown. The phone calls to Grammy, Eloise, and Patrice in Ranson. All of it completely useless. Every single move they had made had been anticipated by a woman who had been dead for 5 months. Planned right here in this office on Pike Street in Clarksburg, West Virginia, from a hospital bed with an 4 drip in her left arm and a red pen in her right hand. "There is one remaining item," Hendricks said. She reached into the folder and placed the cream-colored envelope on the table. My mother's handwriting on the front. Donna left a personal letter. It is addressed to Gary. She asked me to read it aloud in his presence at the appropriate time. Hendricks looked at me. "Is this the time, Brooke?" I nodded. Gary pushed back from the table. "I don't need to. Mom asked for this specifically," I said. "Please." He looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time since I had moved into the Martinsburg house. Then he settled back into his chair, put both hands flat on the table and said quietly, "Okay." Hendricks opened the envelope, unfolded 2 handwritten pages and read, "Gary, if you are hearing this letter being read aloud in a lawyer's office, then what I expected has happened. I am gone and someone in your life is trying to take what I built for our daughter." Renee's jaw went tight. Gary stared at the table. "I want you to know I am not writing this with anger. I am writing it with clarity. I know you, Gary. I have always known you. You are not a cruel man. But you are a weak one. And weakness left unchecked does the exact same damage as cruelty. It just sleeps better at night." Gary's eyes went red. His knuckles whitened on the edge of the table. "I knew you would remarry. I knew that whoever you chose would see what I built and calculate what it was worth to her. And I knew you would convince yourself that letting her have access was the generous thing, because agreeing was always so much easier for you than standing firm. I used to call that flexibility. I know now it was just a nicer word for giving up." Conference room on Pike Street in Clarksburg was so quiet I could hear a car horn from the street below. Aunt Beverly's steady breath beside me. Creak of Gary's chair as he leaned forward like the words were pulling him in against his will. "But I am not writing this to punish you, Gary. I am writing this because our daughter should not have to fight this battle alone. She is strong, stronger than you know, maybe stronger than me. But she is also 16 years old and she just lost her mother. And she deserves at least one parent who finally puts her first." Hendricks turned to the final paragraph. Her voice was steady and full of quiet respect. "I could not make you into the father she deserved, but I could make sure she would be okay without one. That is what this trust is. It is not about the money. It is about giving our daughter a floor beneath her feet that no one, not you, not whoever comes after me, can ever pull away." Last line, "Do not be angry at Brooke. Be angry at yourself for making this letter necessary." Gary broke. He put his face in both hands and he wept. Not the polite, controlled kind of crying. The raw, ugly, deep-chest kind that has been building for years. The sound of a man hearing the complete truth from a woman he had fundamentally underestimated every single year he had known her. Renee stood up, grabbed her manila folder, all those hours of planning, all those internet printouts, said, "This is completely ridiculous," walked to the door, slammed it so hard the framed certificates on the wall shook. The sound echoed down the hallway of the office building on Pike Street in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Aunt Beverly put her arm around me. I held the locket between my fingers. "Mom, you saw every single move from 2 years away. You saw all of it." Gary was sitting in his pickup truck in the parking lot behind the building on Pike Street with the engine off, both hands on the steering wheel, staring at a brick wall. I walked over, opened the passenger door, sat down. We didn't speak for a full minute. Truck smelled like sawdust and old coffee and work gloves. A dried-out pine air freshener hung from the rearview mirror. Long past useful. "I didn't know she'd written all of that," he said finally. His voice was scraped out and hollow. "Yeah, you did," I said. "You just didn't think she'd actually say it." He flinched. Small. But real. "I'm not going to fight you, Gary. But I am not giving you a single dollar of Mom's money, not 1 cent of that $600,000. It's not mine to give. She set it up in Clarksburg because she knew exactly what was coming. She made the answer always be no, even for the moments when I was too scared and too alone to say it myself." He stared through the windshield at the brick wall. "I'll stay in the Martinsburg house until I turn 18. I will be respectful and I will not cause problems. But the day I turn 18, I am leaving. And I am not coming back. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. You made sure of that a long time ago. I opened the door and stepped out onto the gravel of the Pike Street parking lot. Brooke. I stopped. Didn't turn around. Your mother was. He stopped. Swallowed hard. She was always the stronger one. By miles. I know, I said. I really know. I walked to Beverly's car from Pittsburgh without looking back. You had 16 years to be my father. She had 23 months left. She used every single day of them for me. Hendricks moved fast. Within 5 days, Gary and Renee each received certified letters at the Martinsburg house from the Clarksburg office. All communication regarding the Donna Callahan Irrevocable Trust must go through the trustee exclusively. Any attempt to contact Brooke about trust finances, directly through family members or through any third party, would be formally documented and reported. A separate letter went to Renee alone, with the full Allegheny Trust denial letter from Pittsburgh enclosed. The closing line, no further legal action will be pursued at this time. However, this documentation has been preserved and filed. Renee understood exactly what that meant. One more move and she'd be explaining herself to someone with a federal badge. Uncle Marsh called Grammy Eloise in Shepherdstown that same evening and laid it all out. The trust was airtight. Renee had impersonated a legal guardian to try to access a protected minor's account through a company in Pittsburgh. Gary had called his own brother in Charleston and asked him to find a loophole to break into his daughter's inheritance. Grammy Eloise called Gary that night. I was in the laundry room and could only hear her side of it through the wall, but Grammy's voice carries when she's genuinely ashamed of someone she loves. You let that woman try to steal from your own child? Aunt Patrice texted me from Ranson 2 days later. Completely different tone. Brooke, I owe you a real apology. I didn't know the whole story. Renee told us something very different and I didn't ask questions. I'm sorry. Your mama sounds like she was extraordinary. I wish I had known her. I thanked her. I meant it. Within the month, Renee was no longer included in Sunday dinners at Grammy's house in Shepherdstown. Gary was invited alone. He went once, sat through it looking like a man who understood the sentence he was serving and didn't go back. The Martinsburg house got quieter. Not peaceful, just emptier. Gary and Renee fought behind their bedroom door most nights. One night I was walking past the kitchen and caught Renee on the phone, mask completely off. He couldn't even get money out of his own kid. I married him because I thought he had potential. Turns out his dead ex-wife was the one with the actual plan. She laughed, short, sharp. I should have looked at the finances before the wedding. Lesson learned. She hung up. I walked back to my room. That night I understood something about Renee I hadn't before. Gary wasn't a husband to her. He was a financial strategy that hadn't worked. And now that the numbers were wrong, she was already somewhere else in her head. About 2 weeks later, Jade knocked on my laundry room door late on a school night. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. For what it's worth, your mom sounds like she was an incredible person. I looked at this girl who hadn't chosen any part of this, brought from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia into a situation she didn't create by a mother running her own calculations. She really was, I said. And for one small moment in that ugly house on the west side of Martinsburg, something genuinely kind passed between us. If you are still listening right now, if you've been with me this whole time, I want you to do something. Right now, while you're still feeling this story. Leave a comment. Tell me your city. Tell me what country you're in. Tell me what time it is there right now as you're listening to this. And tell me, have you ever had family pressure you to hand over something that was left specifically for you? 'Cause your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Smash that like button if this hit you. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because the next story I'm dropping is just as wild as this one, I promise you that. Okay. Here's how it ends. 16 months pass the way hard months do. Slowly in the feeling. Fast on the calendar. I kept my head down. School at Martinsburg High School. Volunteer shifts at the Martinsburg Public Library on Chesapeake Avenue. SAT prep at the back table by the window. I scored a 1,420. Mrs. Fogarty told me my mom would have framed it. I believed her. I applied to West Virginia University in Morgantown that December, English major. I got in with a partial academic merit scholarship. The rest would come from the Trust's $65,000 education distribution when I turned 18. I signed the WVU housing contract the week of my birthday. During those 16 months, Renee and I developed an unspoken agreement. She stopped mentioning the Trust. She stopped mentioning my mother. She barely acknowledged me at meals, which was an enormous relief compared to what had come before. Gary drifted through the house like a man who had lost the main thread of his own life. He went to work, came home, ate dinner in front of the TV, went to bed. His relationship with Renee deteriorated behind the bedroom door for months before she filed for divorce the following spring. I was already in Morgantown by then. Hendricks released the $65,000 educational distribution on my 18th birthday. I walked into the First Community Bank branch on Queen Street in Martinsburg that same morning. In my own checking account. My name. My signature. No one else's. The teller asked if I'd like to add a parent or co-account holder. I said no. Just mine, please. The morning I moved out was a Tuesday in August. Same 2 suitcases I'd arrived with. Mom's wooden box. The journal, dried out now, ink faded in places but still readable. Everything I owned fit in 2 bags and a box. That used to make me sad. Standing in that laundry room for the last time, it made me feel absolutely free. Gary was at the front door when I came down the hall. Coffee mug in his hand. He looked like a man who had been slowly figuring out the cost of every wrong turn he'd made, and had finally finished adding it all up. Donna, he caught himself, his voice breaking on his dead ex-wife's name. Brooke. I know I don't have the right to say this, but good luck. I mean that. I looked at him for a long moment. My father, who left my mother when she was healthy, who never visited while she was dying at United Hospital Center in Clarksburg, who had let his wife try to access a $600,000 trust through a company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who had never once in 16 months in Martinsburg said the words, "I'm sorry." Standing in his doorway holding coffee he'd forget to finish. Bye, Gary. He opened his mouth. Nothing came. I walked out. Beverly was waiting in her car from Pittsburgh. I loaded my bags. She put her hand over mine. Ready. So ready. She backed out of the driveway. I watched the Martinsburg house get smaller in the mirror. I didn't slam a single door on the way out. I closed them all quietly, the way my mom always showed me to. My dorm room at West Virginia University in Morgantown was 9 by 11 feet. A bed, a desk, a small closet, and a window looking out over a courtyard where students played frisbee between classes. I hung my mom's photo above the desk on day 1, the one from my 7th birthday in Clarksburg, both of us laughing at something just out of frame. I set the wooden box on the nightstand. I wore the locket every morning like a ritual. Like armor. Like a promise kept. I declared English as my major because writing was the only thing that made me feel close to her. She always said the world needs more people who can tell the truth without flinching. Aunt Beverly drove down from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania once a month with Tupperware containers of food and stories about my mom as a teenager in Clarksburg. How Donna had once driven through a February blizzard to bring a forgotten permission slip to a friend's school. How Donna had been accepted into the WVU nursing program before switching to education because, as she put it, I like kids more than I like charts. Beverly laughed every time she told that one. She would have been a terrifying nurse, she'd say. Too much backbone for any doctor to handle. Hendricks sent quarterly trust statements from her office on Pike Street in Clarksburg, professional, clean, exactly what my mom would have wanted. Each statement came with a brief handwritten note. Once, investments performing solidly. No irregularities. Another time, your mother would be very proud of your GPA, Brooke. Uncle Marsh checked in from Charleston every few weeks. Short texts. How's Morgantown? You good? Need anything? He wasn't a man of many words, but he showed up in the ways that counted. Through everything, that meant a lot. 4 months into my first semester at WVU, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line: I wanted you to know something. It was from Jade. Hey, Brooke. I know this is out of nowhere. I got your email from Colton's phone. He doesn't know, don't worry. I'm at Eastern West Virginia Community College in Moorfield now. Paying my own way, loans, Pell Grant, and tips from the diner on Route 220 where I work Friday and Saturday nights. It's hard and I'm tired literally all the time. But I needed you to know, I am so glad you didn't give in. If you had handed over that $600,000, my mom would have spent half of it inside a year. The other half on things that had nothing to do with me or Colton. That's just who she is. She wanted to win. That was the whole point for her. At least this way, what I'm earning is actually mine. I know where every single dollar came from. That means something to me I didn't know it would. You didn't owe me anything. But watching you hold your ground helped me figure out how to hold mine. So, thank you. Jade. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and looked at my mom's photo above the desk in my dorm room in Morgantown. Mom, I said out loud to the empty room, that trust you built in Clarksburg didn't just protect your money. It protected a future you never even knew you were protecting. 7 months after I moved into the dorms at WVU, a letter showed up in my campus mailbox in Morgantown. Plain white envelope. No return address. But I knew the handwriting immediately, blocky, slightly tilted right. The same as the birthday cards that stopped coming to Clarksburg when I was 9. I opened it standing by the recycling bin in the mailroom. 1 page. Front only. Blue ink. Brooke. I have read your mother's letter from the Clarksburg meeting 4 times now. The last time was 2 nights ago. She was right. About everything. Every word. I was weak. I let Renee make decisions that were mine to make, and I let you carry the cost of that for 16 months in Martinsburg. I'm sorry. I know those words are too small and too late, but I mean them. I started seeing a counselor in Charleston in September. Renee and I are separated. She moved back to her mother's place in Hagerstown, Maryland with Colton. The house in Martinsburg is quiet. Too quiet. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect anything. But I needed you to know that I finally heard your mother. Probably 10 years too late. But I heard her. Gary. I stood in that mailroom at WVU for a long time. A student came in, grabbed a package, left without noticing me. Life moves around grief the way river water moves around a stone. I didn't write back, not from anger. I believe parts of that letter were real. Counseling in Charleston. The separation. The 4 readings of the letter from Clarksburg. Those aren't the actions of a man who's still performing. They're the first small steps of someone finally doing the work. But forgiveness isn't something you hand over just because someone asks for it. Grows slowly. Like something you put on the windowsill and water without knowing when it'll bloom. I took Gary's letter back to my dorm room in Morgantown and placed it in the wooden box, right next to the locket and the birthday card my mom wrote me when I turned 13. The one where she wrote, "You are braver than you know, and I will spend whatever time I have left proving it to you." I didn't throw his letter away. That meant something. I just wasn't sure what yet. It's the middle of spring semester. I'm a first-year English major at West Virginia University in Morgantown, West Virginia. Trees outside my dorm window are full green. Courtyard below is alive with people. I'm sitting at the desk my mom never got to see, with her photo in front of me and the locket warm against my chest. I open the locket. 7-year-old me grins up from her lap, completely unaware of everything that's coming. I close it gently. My mother did not teach me to fight. She taught me something harder than fighting. She taught me to prepare. She taught me that some battles don't need shouting or revenge or making a scene in front of everybody. They need a woman sitting at her sister's kitchen table with a legal pad and a clear head, quietly building something that will protect her daughter years after she is gone. Vivian Hendricks executed that plan from an office on Pike Street in Clarksburg, West Virginia, without flinching. Uncle Marsh drove from Charleston, West Virginia and showed up in that conference room when nobody had even asked him to. Jade found her own ground, studying in Moorfield and earning every dollar herself. Aunt Beverly drove from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania every single month to keep me sane and connected to who my mother was. And my mom built the whole fortress from a hospital room at United Hospital Center in Clarksburg, with a red pen in her right hand and whatever time she had left. If someone in your life is telling you that love means handing over what was left for you, that family means giving up your boundaries, your inheritance, your dignity, hear me on this, that is not love. That is control wearing a costume. You do not owe anyone your mother's money. You do not owe anyone your silence. You do not owe anyone your peace. My mom could not protect me in person, so she put it in an irrevocable trust with a lock that nobody could pick. She put it in a letter that said every true thing I was too young and too scared to say for myself. She sealed that letter and left it in a desk drawer in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and she trusted that the right moment would come. It did. My name is Brooke Callahan. I am 18 years old. I am a first-year English major at West Virginia University in Morgantown. I have my mother's locket around my neck. I have her $600,000 trust protected and intact. And I have her spine. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where she spent her final year making sure I would be. This story found you today. If you listened all the way to the end, that means something. You are not the kind of person who gives up halfway through. And I want to hear from you. Right now. Here's exactly what I'm asking you to do, and it takes less than 1 minute. 1. Drop a comment below this video right now. Tell me your city. Tell me your state or your country. Tell me what time it is there as you're listening to this. I read every single comment, every one, and I want to know where in the world this story is landing today. 2. Answer this question in your comment. Have you ever been pressured by your own family to give up money, property, or an inheritance that was left specifically for you? Your story might be exactly what somebody else needs to read today. Don't hold back. 3. Hit the like button. Right now. If this story moved you, if it gave you chills, if it made you think about someone you love, tap it. Takes 1 second. It helps this story reach people who need it. 4. Subscribe. If you aren't subscribed yet, hit that button right now. 'Cause the next story I'm bringing you is just as powerful as this one. I don't want you to miss it. Turn on notifications so you're the first to know when it drops. 5. Share this. Put it on your Instagram story. Drop it in your family group chat. Maybe somebody in there needs to hear it. Send it to that one friend who always feels like they're fighting alone. You have no idea how far one share can travel or whose life it might change. I told my story because my mother can't. And because right now, somewhere in the world, someone is sitting at a kitchen table being told that family means handing over what they're owed. It doesn't. It never did. And the next time you hear someone say, your mom would have wanted this, remember what one incredible woman in Clarksburg, West Virginia quietly built from a hospital bed to make sure her daughter would never have to find out what giving up felt like. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.